Hey guys, Coach Matheu here with another video on our Play Like a World Champion series. And today we'll be talking about the person who takes the title from Capablanca. And he is Alexander Alekhine. So Alekhine becomes the fourth official world champion in 1927 after he defeats Capablanca in a match. And today I wanted to show a game that I think really exemplifies his style. So, I mean, of course, like I've said before, you don't get to be a world champion by just being good at one part of the game. Alekhine was great in the opening and getting the most out of the opening, looking at new plans, coming up with new plans and different systems for sure. Great endgame player as well. But by far, he stands out as an attacking player. I believe Alekhine to be the first world champion who is a pure attacking player. When he had the initiative, he wanted to transfer that into an attack and was looking for a combination to finish you. And he came up with that pretty often. So today we're going to see a game that is no different from that. So let's jump in. This is Samudio versus Alekhine, 1926, Buenos Aires. Let's check it out. So remember, it's 1926. Alekhine is not yet the champion, but let's see that hunger that gets him there to beating Capablanca in the next year. So Alekhine is playing black. White opens with e4. I love it. Here, Alekhine plays a Sicilian. It's an opening you have to be ready for when you see, when you play e4. You're going to see it at every level. Every level, white has to have something. Black wants to fight when they play it, so white has to be ready. White plays knight f3, e6, knight c3, just a way of holding off the open Sicilian, which is immediate d4, and by far the main move. White is just hoping black will clarify what his plans are, which Sicilian he wants to play. So Alekhine goes ahead with a6, staying pretty flexible, not committing any of his pieces to squares. White plays a3. I believe this to be a little unnecessary. It's a little too cute. Just play d4. Just, go ahead and play d4. Go into an open Sicilian. a3 is a little unnecessary. I mean, it does stop bishop b4 in some later lines, but it also stops black. It stops white strategically in some other positions we'll see. Just a little slow. So queen c7, d4, c takes, knight takes. And this is a fairly standard Sicilian composition, actually. But now just white has thrown in this a3 move. Not a developing move, not useful. Usually in the open Sicilian, white wants to use their lead in development. Look, there's two pieces out versus just the queen. White would like to use that lead in development to attack. a3 does not support that notion. So knight f6, developing. The king side, bishop d3. Alekhine plays bishop d6. I'm really crazy about this move. I really like it. It's also a common idea now in the Sicilian con, so it's cool to see him playing this almost 100 years ago, when I'm sure it wasn't. So bishop d6, simple battery. The queen is powering the bishop, but we're also seeing black is really trying to take control of the dark squares in the center, like this e5 square, and on the king side, like the f4 pawn, which is usually a move white is aiming to play, to be able to play e5 and free his bishop. But with the bishop and queen, like they are, f4 is going to be very hard to play, which means it's going to be very difficult for white to get space on the king side. So after bishop d6, oh, and there's also just the point of, if you castle, you just straight up lose a pawn on h2. That would be a little embarrassing. So bishop d6, excellent move. Active move too. Active move. In the opening, you don't want to just play sort of like rote memorization. Put those pieces on active squares. Make your opponent think. The more you can make your opponent think, the better a chance they have of making a mistake. And that's when you swoop in and take the full point. So now, white plays knight f3, a retreat with the knight, covering h2, putting a little more pressure on e5. Alekhine develops the knight, knight to c6. Now, still fighting for the e5 square, also fighting for the d4 square, but developing pieces as well. And notice, black has caught up in development all of a sudden. If we go back to this position, two knights out versus a queen, and yet because of white's sort of lackadaisical play, black has caught up. Three pieces. So bishop e3, developing the bishop. And now Alekhine plays another active move, knight g4. Very nice move. In the Sicilian, specifically in the open Sicilian, white's dark squared bishop is a nuisance to black's position, and especially its counterpart, or its rival, I should say, black's dark squared bishop. So any chance black can get to take that dark squared bishop, sometimes they'll even take it with a rook, is a big plus for black. It's not a move you really even want to think about. Like, yeah, if you can take the bishop, go for it. Because then this dark square bishop can just wreak havoc on the position on key dark squares and key dark diagonals. So knight g4 and queen e2. White can't allow black to just take the bishop and then double the e-pawns like that. That's not going to work. So queen e2. And now b5. Active move. This move is fairly common in Sicilian as well, with the threat of b4, which would unhinge the knight in some positions and make e4 a target. Helps the bishop develop to b7 and just takes space on the queen side. c4 is not as available. The a4 square is not. Oops, the a4 square is not available to the knight. But it's also kind of putting white on notice. Like, yo, if you castle queen side, this isn't going to go well for you. I can open the b file fairly easily with a move like b4 or even rook b8 and then b4. But also then there's this little trick, knight takes. And like we said, if you take with the f pawn, that's just sad. But queen takes, you lose your queen. So that's pretty nice. This battery would yield some material after that. So that's nice. So after b5, h3 happens, declaring the knight must go. So the knight happily takes the bishop instead of going backwards. Queen takes, and once again, bishop f4 comes up, hitting the queen. And I think I said this in an earlier video. When you take a bishop, when you take one of your opponent's bishops, a good thing to follow up on is just attack the color of the bishop that's no longer there. Your opponent's going to have trouble sort of accounting for that. The bishop on f4, hitting the queen. Also, once you move the queen, you can't castle queen side anymore. Just hitting dark squares, annoying white. When you take a bishop, you want your opponent to feel like that bishop is gone. And after bishop f4, white is definitely feeling that. So queen e2, bishop b7, developing the bishop on this long diagonal. Knight d1. I'm not so sure about this move. I mean, it's going backwards. You have to be very careful when you're going backwards. At any point, especially with a knight, knights can't go far. So when you put them back, you're essentially going to have to redevelop them. And the problem is when you put a piece on the back rank, it always hurts more than just the piece on the back rank. You're now getting in the way of connecting your rooks. I mean, maybe it gives white the chance of going c4 or c3 even, but that's not the highest priority right now. This knight should not go backwards. So let's see. So Alekhine castles, and now white castles. And this is great. Alekhine wastes no time fighting for the initiative and putting his opponent under pressure. He plays f5, just challenging white's center. And here, white takes, e takes, e takes. But there's also a deeper strategical reason for this. So this bishop on f4 and this bishop on b7 could do a lot of damage to this king castled on the king side, the g2 square and the h2 square. But this bishop on b7 is blocked by its own knight and by the e4 pawn and by the knight on f3. f5 says, okay, I'm going to get rid of your pawn. And also after e takes, you can't use the e4 square anymore. You don't have a center pawn, and I have the e file to put my rook on. So the board is opening, the diagonals are opening, and black is ready to put pressure on this king. So f5, there you have it. Also take space with the king side. The rook can lift up if it wants. This bishop is now blocked on this diagonal. Excellent idea. Knight comes to e3. The knight gets redeveloped. This knight may jump into d5 if it gets the chance, or even just take on f5. Alekhine is having none of that. Rook a8. Notice the rook swings right into the game on the open file, pins the knight. Excellent. And this is what coordination looks like. Every piece that black has left, I mean, of course, besides the king, but he's doing his job in the corner, is willing to help out in this attack. So the rook's immediately in the game. The rooks are connected next to each other, ready to do damage. Rook A E1. Yes, they're on the same file, but this rook has a lot more influence on the file than the E rook. That's just blocked by his own pieces. So now I really like this move. This is a very strong move as well. Knight E5. And the idea is, well, we want to get this bishop going in this attack too. This bishop on F4 is already doing a strong job. But we said this bishop was blocked by some pieces. So knight E5. If the knight can't fit into the plan of attack, well, we have to trade it. And let's trade it for, one of our opponent's good defenders. And we know a knight on F3 is a good defensive piece for a king. So knight E5. Diagonal is now opening. So knight goes to D4. White declines the trade, but it does not stop Black's goal. Black just wanted to open the diagonal, and the knight still moved. So knight E5, and since White didn't trade the knights, Black was able to bring another piece closer towards the king side and have some influence. So very risky decision. But already White is forced to make some tough choices. If you take, after rook takes, who's defending the king? He's getting more and more vulnerable. So tough decisions. Knight D4, G6, just defending F5, making sure this bishop has no fun, and the knight doesn't sneak in. And here, White plays C3, just bolstering the knight. But this move just gets punished. Punished. Here, Alekhine leaps in with bishop H2 check. Remember, the knight on F3 was defending the H2 square, but now, there's no one guarding that, just the king. A great square to attack is always the one that just the king is defending, because he does not want to play defense. So bishop H2. And if you take, double check, you have to go back to H1. Queen H2 is lights out. Checkmate. That's a very nice checkmate, if I may say so. So bishop H2, king has to go over. And now F4, just marching down. If you take, Black can take, and this is still a threat. This knight F3 idea, very strong. And if you leave, look, this e-pawn is even close to promoting. Very strong. And just brings another attacker into the game for Black. That rook has a nice line on the F file to work with. So F4. Knight G4. Now this is dangerous because it's saying, okay, takes, if we trade, the E file opens. But White is just in time to move his queen away. And also the knight on G4 is hitting the bishop, which seems to be trapped. And Alekhine just starts throwing haymakers here. F3. This pawn just gets to marching, it seems. Back first F4 and now F3. But, the plan is, let's open the diagonal for the bishop. And just all the tactics are working here. So, if you take our bishop, you just lose your queen. If you take our knight, you lose your queen. So, big trouble here. G takes F3. But now after G takes F3, when knight takes G4, White can no longer do queen takes. The pawn's in the way, which means the rook is now attacking the queen. Beautiful discovery. And now the queen can jump in on this diagonal. So queen takes E8. White is hoping to get two rooks for a queen. Now queen takes E8 is a nice move, but it's not a forcing move. It's not a check. You don't have to capture back. Have to resist the urge to capture the queen. And Alekhine does. He goes bishop G1. That's just beautiful. Threatening queen H2 mate. Two pieces are hanging that can stop that checkmate. Like, if you take the bishop, that's one thing. But then the knight and queen still checkmate you on H2. If you take the knight, that's another thing. But then the bishop and queen checkmate you on H2. You can take on F8. But that's still checkmate on H2 after that. So at this point, it's not even that, White resigns because of down material. That's checkmate. You're not stopping that. You can't go F4 because the bishop's on the diagonal. Beautiful game from Alekhine. And it all seems to happen so quickly. But if you keep in mind from this position, Alekhine just brings all his pieces closer towards the king and then uses them to checkmate, looking for tactics and ways to take advantage of loose pieces. So as great as he is, someone takes the title from him, and we got to figure out who. Until then, take care, guys.